Mr. Anthony Burgess has collected his reviews. Of this I do not complain altogether, things being what they are. Yet dog proceeding to eat dog, I shall ask, how does one review reviews? Perhaps, to begin with, by abstracting sentences, to get at the mind of the reviewing writer, at his mental style, which I shall do, with one or two comments.
Writing books engenders tobacco addiction, an over-reliance on caffeine and dexedrine, piles, dyspepsia, chronic anxiety, sexual impotence. Mere authors will continue to despair of their ability to approach that prose perfection of the books of Vivian Moore. He is as welcome as is Abe Thorpe. It is right for the European novel to be interested in disease, since Europe itself is a disease, exquisitely but treacherously mined with fistulas. With the general acceptance of Yeats's greatness, a lot of life has gone out of Yeats' criticism. Taking Yeats's verse seriously means not poring over it in the study, but declaiming it to the waves and over pints of draught Guinness. Dylan was the greatest lyric poet of the 20th century. Look for a parallel to Dylan Thomas in the literature of the past, and you won't go far wrong if you adduce Virgil. Lament for a Maker, novel title for an obituary of T.S. Eliot.
These fair samples bring one about a third of the way through. I have quoted them less because they are silly, but surely some of them are a trifle bizarre, than because the words do exhibit a quality, unlike the blue in Cézanne, which no one will find other than coarse and unattractive, I should think, or hope. I find a desire to please in rather an ignoble or sneaking way, the style that slaps its own back and ours.
One goes back to the Pre-Raphaelites with love whenever one of our art students starts whining that nobody will buy the canvases he's ridden over with a wet bicycle.
I suspect this reviewer's anxiety to convince himself, perhaps more than others, that an insatiable liking for words amounts to the ability to use them well and to distinct purpose. Only some such literary anxiousness, coupled with energy, could explain writing and writing on with a badness at once so surprisingly defiant and so exceedingly obvious, or could explain the way Mr. Burgess throws about, in such a mode, references to the obscurities of his own scholarship, or the way he will drop suddenly into the argot of the academic. Another trick, an allied trick, is to be where the rest of us usually are not. He says he was in Russia when Ernest Hemingway died. Well, if he was, the fact doesn't in any real way affect what little Mr. Burgess goes on to tell us about the art of Hemingway. He might as well have begun that he was paying his rates at the council offices, or catching crayfish at Piddletwenthide, or declaiming Yeats over pints of Guinness above the waves of the Bournemouth sewage outfall when Hemingway died. In short, I can never quite believe Mr. Burgess in this book. I know nothing of his novels. Old yokels in Adderbury, my former Oxfordshire home, talk of the Earl of Rochester as though he only died yesterday, Mr. Burgess writes. Really? And as they talk of him in their smock frocks, do they quote with an Oxfordshire, not Oxford, accent, dwudging in fair Aurelia's womb, or ancient person of my heart. Of course, like other readers or reviewers, Mr. Burgess is often sensible. He does promote one or two notions. For example, art offers unity instead of conflict, which really is no more than one of many puffs of wind from some familiar quarter filling out Mr. Burgess's jeans and shorts to a masculine or muscular semblance on the clothesline of this rather small back garden. When I was younger, collecting one's reviews was a familiar sneer. I have used it myself in writing of others than Mr. Burgess. But this is a parsimonious society, which can spare little money to authors and little space for periodical criticism. So the sneer is perhaps antiquarian. And it is. It has to be possible to say something in little. Even so, I like the reviews I read, if this is not being too idiosyncratic for our day, less shaggy and loud, and less in the public bar